Welcome back. Next up, you will hear from three brilliant poets with new books in a fascinatingly wide spectrum of traditions and subjects, all of crucial concern today, but rarely grasped with such passion and breadth. Your host is A.F. Moritz, who currently serves as the 6th Poet Laureate of the City of Toronto. His many honors include a Guggenheim Fellowship, the Award in Literature from the American Academy and Institute of Arts and Letters, the Griffin Poetry Prize, the Bess Hoeken Prize, and an Ingram Mellon Fellowship. Hello.
Hello, Sienna. Thank you very much. And let me get right to it, okay? So that we have all our time for our beautiful poets. So I'm going to say a few words based on the title. The Song of Love, Joyous or Sorrowful is the title of our session. And it's the one I suggested for the reading and that the three poets liked. It comes from the Spanish poet Juan Ramon Jimenez. I said song of love, but the word Jimenez actually used is queja, complaint or a moan. He wrote of the poetic state of grace, dynamic ecstasy, from which the central thing emerges, the complaint of love, joyous or sorrowful, the form of a flight, the passionate form of liberty. In 1902, he said, speaking of the young revolutionary Spanish poetry of those days, we had to dream of poetry as an action, as a spiritual power that longed to be more and greater, unfolding itself within itself to create its own essence, a new life, a life of love and veneration. So those terms by one of the very greatest of poets seem a permanent revelation of the nature of poetry. They are a poem in themselves, a poem of thought and insight. They are beautifully proven in the new poems of Natasha Ramoutar, Beatriz Hausner, and Joe Fiorito. And these three poets add the wonderful experience of the tremendous variety of the works of love. Because poetry is one of the works of love, one of the manifestations of love, one of the chief of these, one that is essential. Famously, James, the brother of Jesus, wrote that there are many who proclaim their faith, and that's all we get from them. And then James comments, at first sourly, then soaringly, well, you show me your faith. Where is it? But I will show you my works. That's exactly what the poet does. He doesn't just say love, he shows love. In poetry, love is shown. It is as visible in the poem as in works of charity and in the titanic group struggles for justice. It's an action among those actions, an action that is necessary for those other actions. And that's what we'll hear in these three poets. Without the action of poetry, what does the action of action mean? When those actions take place in silence, then they are the poesia non escrita, the poetry that is not written, that Jimenez defined and extolled, the poetry that lies behind poetry and in front of poetry. And the poetry of silent action, poetry not yet written, of course, always results afterwards in poetry that is written, which feeds back again into the wordless action. Now let me read a few words that show this from each of our poets, from each of these new books. Here are a few lines from Beatriz Hausner's beloved revolutionary sweetheart, from the middle of the poem entitled The Orgasm Elegies. I find myself making myself from you and out of you. Love, yours is mine and mine is yours. Incipit vita nova, here begins the new life. Daily renewing, daily restoring, daily for all time. Let it be known, your parts are mine, to have or not, but to excess. Start the calling, daily giving, daily adorning, daily coming, daily getting to coming, daily my sense, my life, my eyes, lovely lover, daily and many times daily I bind you to me. That's pure eros and the essential couple. Natasha Ramoutar explores other dimensions of love in Bittersweet, a book whose very title translates Jimenez's line, the complaint of love, joyous or sorrowful, bittersweet. This poem, Swell, grasps a whole history in a single living moment. When we arrive in Guyana, my mother's feet swell from the sweltering heat, as if our bodies do not know this country's fire courses through our veins, as if it has forgotten that my mother is from this soil, that her skin was scrubbed with its sugar, that the heat is a long-lost friend welcoming her home. A return to the native land to find that it seems to have forgotten that you are from this soil, that you are its long-lost friend. Surely a song of sorrowing love. A poem like that, so concise, has a kinship with the vision of Joe Fiorito. Here's a poem from Joe's All I Have Learned Is Where I Have Been, called 6 Months Dead. Swollen, unwell in my bed, a boy brought food and liquor with my money, some of which, food, liquor, money, he kept. No one caught a whiff of me when I was dead. How deeply I was taken by these 3 books. How much I've rejoiced in their joy, and even more perhaps in their loving sorrow. Joe's poem. Here the poet has truly cast a cold eye on life, on death, as Yeats commanded, but he has not passed by, as Yeats also commanded. The poor man who was not found for 6 months, so alone he was, until finally his corpse became a dry, odorless rind. Even this sorrow, even this horror, is held in the poem's gaze, its song, its work of love. And now let me just introduce Natasha, and she'll read to us for 12, 13, 14 minutes. Natasha's brilliant first book, Bittersweet, Journeys from Toronto to Guyana and South Asia, with Scarborough always a vivid, youthful presence. An Indo-Guyanese writer by way of Scarborough, Ramoutar is a poet and producer who covers arts and culture. Her prize-winning work has been widely published and presented. Bittersweet is a collage representing both a reconstructed homeland and Scarborough, using photographs, maps, language, folklore, bringing together definitions, recipes, cartography, photo albums, oral stories, and sensitive lyricism. Through these, it meditates on obscured and suppressed history, theft, time, liminality. Bittersweet is Ramoutar's first book of poems. Natasha, welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that introduction. Thank you as well to the organizers for having me, and I'm so excited to be here and to be presenting some of the work from Bittersweet. As mentioned, this collection explores a kind of disrupted or suppressed lineage. So my collection asks, what happens when you don't have documents or photographs? And what do you use to reimagine those links? So for me, the narrator of these poems in Bittersweet, she's using definitions, recipes, ghost tales to try and grasp at a history that might feel out of reach. In addition to that, as mentioned in my introduction as well, it does place a heavy emphasis on Scarborough. Scarborough is where I grew up, and the joy that is found there is something that I think is being captured right now in this kind of artistic moment. But growing up, I don't know if that was something that I saw as much. So with that, I'll read a few pieces from the collection. So the first piece that I'll read is called Cartography 1. Ask me where I come from, and I will tell you. From the remnants of melted sugar cubes, from rough grains ripped from stalks, from spiced and saccharine scents, from a sweetness that mixes with cardamom hanging in the air. I come from a line of bittersweet women, women shrewd enough to empty pockets, to upturn kingdoms, to launch ships, to war. On a journey long ago, I witnessed the origin point. Fields of cane, standing tall, like soldiers on patrol. But cane is raw, just long stalks, unbridled and wild and free. This next one is called Brave New World, and it explores a kind of overlapping of stories and when certain stories or certain tales overtake another and how those merge together. The grandmother of my grandmother's grandmother must have arrived on a ship that rolled through tempestuous waves. At least, that is what I suspect. Where are the faded documents, the sprawling maps, the dog-eared photos of her journey? The stories I know by heart are not of her. Tales of Othello and outcasts, of young Miranda all bright-eyed. My father grew up studying Hamlet in grade school. What of spoiled kings, tortured princes, and frigid Danish air was relatable? Grief, maybe. I think of her upon that ship from Denmark, grasping at ferries in the moonlight. And this next one is called Tea Leaves. I shift my tea leaves back and forth, reading for the past instead of the future. Maybe it's in the bitterness of the Assam leaves, cultivated to need the touch of sweetness. Maybe it's in the sugar, grown across baked beaten backs. Maybe it's in the water, the droplets pooling from the rainy season into rough-necked bottles. So the next ones I'm going to move into are more into Scarborough and into writing the joy of this place and of this place's home for me. This first one is called Meadowvale, and it's the street that I grew up on. These streets are yours. They have always been yours, with the dark cracks running up like veins along the aged cement, with the blinking bulbs keeping you in their line of sight. The air that rises off the sewer lids like a hot breath. The dandelions that sprout between the sidewalk and the potholed road. So one of the biggest hot topic issues in Scarborough is always our transit. Our transit is often lacking, and this one in particular, this poem is about the 198 bus, which also runs along the same route as the 116E, and has now been renamed the 905, but it goes from the U of T Scarborough right down to Kennedy Station as a kind of express.
You're putting the problem in a very humane and gentle way. You could be a lot angrier about it.
Exactly. So this was my kind of attempt to be playful, to be playful with this kind of delay. So it's an experience of what happens when you miss it during rush hour and you are waiting for 40 minutes. And so it begins. This poem was waiting for the bus, watching raindrops race along panes of the bus shelter, composing itself to the steady beat of the downpour. After 50 minutes, it began to walk, the deluge a refuge from the roughness of the rouge. Each drop a non-stop pop of ideas, orbs of light to reunite a wavering line of sight. When this poem arrived home, it shed its skin, folded every metaphor into its closet, tucked itself in, and dreamed of a homebound bus. On the same kind of theme of transit, so time 3, there are several time poems throughout the collection that try to capture a moment and reimagine what time might mean to us. And so this one was when your buses or your routes, your transit routes line up and you kind of catch the eye of someone you know, but it's not enough time to actually talk to them. So time 3. What is time but stolen glances beyond straight-line desks and lockers across the hall? That line of sight through the dirty LRT window as the train pulls into Kennedy Station. The slight nod of acknowledgement, the hint of a smile before parting ways again. So this next one, I find a lot of my work especially about Scarborough, is in conversation with other Scarborough artists. And this one, Brimley All the Way South, is in conversation with Noor Khan, who is a filmmaker. She has a short film called East, A Relationship. East, A Relationship really puts into question or considers the way that we take care of a land as settlers, and often coming from places as immigrants that we were forced to leave or that were dangerous and we had to leave, but then connecting with this land and also understanding that we are settlers on this land. And so the line that it lifts from that piece is, think about how we don't deserve this land. And Brimley All the Way South is also formatted. You won't be able to see it, obviously, because I'm reading, but it's formatted like GPS instructions. Mm-hmm. Head northwest towards Military Trail, away from these concrete towers superimposed over the spiraling paths in the valley. Turn left onto Military Trail, noting the way the road is chaotic and the intersection does not line up cleanly. Turn left onto Ellesmere Road to escape this chaos. Turn left onto Morningside Avenue. Feel your spirits rise and fall with the natural hills. Turn right onto Kingston Road. As you pass the motels, remember that this was the arterial pathway into the heart of the city. Turn left onto Brimley Road. Take Brimley all the way south to the place where the water meets the land. Continue onto Bluffers Park. Remember that Elizabeth Simcoe renamed this place, renamed a land long named. Turn right to stay on Bluffers Park. Think about how we are neither rock nor water, just zebra mussels that cling to one another, swaying with these waves. Think about how we don't deserve this land. Turn right. The destination will be on the right, waiting. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In similar kind of conversation with other Scarborough artists, my poem Famous Players connects with Adrian de Leon's collection Rouge, who is also a great friend of mine. His collection maps the city based on the different subway stops. And the one for Scarborough Center, the epigraph that I have on this poem is, "The hub of life is dead today." And it's all considering, so Scarborough Center is the subway stop as well, or the LRT stop rather, at Scarborough Town Center. Wayfaring wanderers among the aisles of clothing. We'd parade in suits in the empty change rooms, hold cheap plastic pearls up to our ears in the mirror until we were chased away. Vagabonds with stray loonies amidst our pocket lint, smuggling chocolates into an uninhabited theater. We clutch hands below the kernels of popcorn, lips smeared with melted butter, as the screens filled our eyes with promises that touched the center of us. Childish drifters looking for a life in an abandoned mausoleum. And then this last poem that I'm going to read, it is called Like Makeshift Crowns. And so growing up, there is a group of 4 girls that I am very, very close with. And I wanted to capture the kind of joy that we felt when we were together and what that looked like. So this poem is a celebration of friendship and a song of love for friendship. Like makeshift crowns. Could we speak about joy for once? About July nights by the lake, about dripping marshmallows over the rising smoke of a bonfire, about the laughter that filled our bodies, caught in our throat as coughs, in our eyes as tears, of the 5 of us tripping over stray branches in the Rouge, of toes pressed in the sand around a withering fire, of stretched nights squeezed in a McDonald's booth meant for 4, of us comforter-wrapped slugs on the worn basement carpet, hair piled atop our heads like makeshift crowns. Joy is not a whispered story, but a wailing manifesto of rampant roots reaching for the heavens, of tides pulled to shore by a wanton moon, of flecks of dried ketchup painting the table, of the weathered stars winking at us through the 4x6 window. We drive out under the vast night sky, looking up at the moon through the sunroof, the bass from the stereo shaking the frame of the car as if it's laughing. Could we speak about dreams? About us making a wish on the star falling into the lake for more nights like this, where we line up along the rocks, toes grazing the water, our giggles rising with the tide as if to say, I am here. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. That was wonderful. I look forward to maybe talking a little bit about it when we can discuss a little at the end of the session. Well, let me just go right on now to introducing Beatriz Hausner and her 15 minutes of reading. Boy, I wish, we had a whole hour for each of these books. Beatriz Hausner's beloved revolutionary sweetheart engages the many faces and bodies of Eros. From wistful romance to explicit sex, the poems are inspired by and invoke the Byzantine Empress Theodora and her husband, the Emperor Justinian, and the medieval troubadours, including the important but little-known poet Beatriz, Countess of Dia, the modern surrealists, the Latin poet Ovid, Dante, punk and new wave music, and a lot more if you get into this book. But for all those different voices, these poems are pure Hausner, the poet of 6 acclaimed collections. Many people will know the unique stamp of her fiery and beautiful work. Hausner came at a young age to Canada from Chile, a respected historian and translator of Latin American surrealism. She is also co-founder of Quattro Books, has served as chair of the Public Lending Right Commission. She's currently president of the Literary Translators Association of Canada, and though recently retired from the Public Library of Toronto, she was for years probably its chief literary and especially its chief poetry program. Hi, Beatriz.
Hi, thank you so much, Al, for a wonderful, very generous introduction. And thank you to the organizers for inviting me to share this afternoon with you. I'm going to start with a short poem. As Al was saying, I borrow a lot from other people. And this little poem borrows from a line from a fairly obscure Latin poet by the name of Maximianus. So I kind of deconstructed, I don't know if it works, but here it is. So soon as the front of you is noticed, you become obscured, sweet apple. To stone the darkness within as the pearl hot, no, not cold, swirls again, yes, and interminably within you, without you. Because who would not take sadness with your ecstasy? Together we pour ourselves out and into me with your great swelling, your soul inherited and further burnished through strange marriages with darkness. The union is almost complete in obscurity as someone else's hands close your doors. Do not take these breasts into belly, no, not yet. And yes, below your chest laid bare, I see your heart, open wound, weeping song of remembrance, relief before the ages multiply. And ah, how slender the trunk of the tree, holding up the weight of your night, your fear of loss and my constant releasing off you to yourself and to darkness. It was inherited from the mothers who roped tightly into knots your hips. Such attraction turned your thighs underneath, away from white ice sheets and black snow, and the cutting knife bearing the song of weeping. The very image of shapeliness is too slow indeed in hiding. Though indeed, unfortunately, I'm not able to bear it witness, for you are inward gone, not deep inward, but somewhat inbound, this inwardness without you, and I am not able to bear it, to bear it, to bear it. The second poem is sort of a bit of a tribute to the troubadour tradition. The troubadours were the inventors of romantic love. And in particular, I pick a few lines and deconstruct them from the Countess of Dia, who is my namesake. Tied up. Speech and knife cut through sense making as time slips in and out of us, first and last an original sun, radiating from among the myriad stars that explode in the night, blackest of darkness where your forebears lived with strange creatures as you began your confinement in and out of forms with the Countess of Dia, sometimes called Beatriz. The animals of my country, you say. Please tell me why my car is in the front yard and I'm sleeping with my clothes on. I came in through the window last night and you were gone. That's what you write as you attach to the ghost of Joffre Rudel with those voices now ours spoken through strange machines that come to our rescue. For we live together with our sexes, first wealth of joy. You inscribe your path in the course of my night, my day on my back. Present yourself so I may see you shackled to strange furniture where love remains hidden in fabric's folds. I, who am relentlessly drawn to the outward signs of inward subversion because of want, will travel the length of your body with my lips, touch your geographic markers, finally become cruel inside the bodysuit I ideate bondage of man, of woman, bringing us closer to the lifestyles of strange insects. I could put one of those on, I remember saying, and let me point out that the outfit made of shimmering rhinestones and metal mesh is laid out and ready. Yes, such is the manner of my being beautiful for you, disguised sharply with my edges under gold and silver thread, turning myself more appropriately into the praying mantis you so often marry. In night and in the light of day, over there for some hope of help, but later it comes back and tells me it would be hard to slip away because I can trace your singing. I, who am your mistress, become lighter as I dress myself in the man-like suit made from ethereal layers of fabric, the better to expose my soul to fishnet and may my skin not show. My completeness is breathlessly held by the tiresome suspension of time you subject me to, barely audibly, and despite the bindings I get on top. Movement and stasis, giving it and taking it. Let's stop this being in the heart's chambers. Try it without love and openly before the secret overwhelms itself and consumes us in flames. Miss pleasure, surrender in darkness and in light, alternating states, shimmery veils that move with the rain. Distress of the heart that lives outside, covered in the matter of liquid skin that is warm and bright and not dark nor intense. I am your reverend. I praise not the transience of your sex, once carried with briefness from east back to west of the great river you must travel now laterally with your sidelong glance become glint, become black stone, bear it on your back until your tenderness is mine and is yielding. We herald togetherness for ourselves even. And we drive, and we are driven. We are driven on, beset by our temptations and our trials. Question, where is he placed? Answer, within 6 walls. Question, where is it? Answer, up, down, before, behind, right, left. Someone is stitching you to me. An assured hand drives the needle in a shimmering thread. Pull me to you that I may hasten my pleasure and not be brave. Last question. What is man like? Answer, an apple.
Probably should take a big bite. Okay, go on.
Okay, so this one is, I'm just reading a couple of pages from a long poem called The Orgasm Melody. You'll recognize quite a bit of lyrics from popular music. Deepening my habit, I think of you. Put up in circles, my labors cradle your entirety in the present replications of your double, triple you. Achingly I fall, time after time, with you here hourly, every second and the clock ticking as you move back and forth, Lift endless spilikins, never disturb the pile. Vatic are your fingers racing across keys. The sounds are being poured into vessels of colored glass. The heart placed on your chest, your sex again. Even if you fall, I will catch you and gently place your body on mine. Open your mouth, pour the sweet honey, my own soft fluttering, quieting water. Dominant, you, my muse, become a swan. Beads for feathers, your skin gold color as the chain is pulled. We turn time after time. You return to a form made of pearls around neck, droplets, liquid skin, tightening the noose. Myself, sweet, handsome friend, I can tell you truly, when you come, the bindings tighten. I climb above. Draw me to you so you may rise to that infinity of mirrors, kaleidoscopic heavens in your eyes, while the multitude of angels stay suspended, and the hand of the invisible one rouses you through me. There must be an angel playing with my heart, containing us, shouting out our devotion to Venus Cockswallower, who rises vast with lands you place before us, so the obstacles beset deep within you, even.
Beautiful.
And I'm going to finish with a poem that is inspired by a scene, a vision in Dante's Vita Nuova, where he sees Beatriz eating a heart. Because I'm Beatriz, I will not relinquish your heart in my mouth. I will swallow the words written on your heart in my mouth. I will take away sorrow as long as I have your heart in my mouth. I will walk a great distance to reach your heart in my mouth. I will stop walking a great distance to reach your heart in my mouth. I never want to stop coming to being with your heart in my mouth. I grow increasingly impatient if I don't have your heart in my mouth. I ignore the fact of new discoveries in astronomy because I have your heart in my mouth. Stars are born, die, and are reborn in the veins that feed your heart in my mouth. There is a great ocean we must cross as we voyage into your heart in my mouth. And what a deafening joy as music fills my throat because I have your heart in my mouth. I speak only to you because I have your heart in my mouth. The sun, the moon at midday, the eclipse with your heart in my mouth. We step out of ourselves, are enthralled as stars explode with your heart in my mouth. So many times there comes into my mind the ideation of being with your heart in my mouth. There are no limits to what I can do with your heart in my mouth. Several constellations are born when I have your heart in my mouth. Liquid skin is the element that constitutes your heart in my mouth. I don't care about the quotidian if I have your heart in my mouth. Flocks of nightingales become airborne with your heart in my mouth. Says Aristotle, the soul sits in the heart, and this supports the fact of your heart in my mouth. A life-size tiger breathing and preponderant threatens to appropriate your heart in my mouth. Great dangers precede and follow my single most objective, your heart in my mouth. I have determined to write the treatise on alchemy to explain your heart in my mouth, determined also that gold is a liquid poured from a great flask suspended above your heart in my mouth. Innate always is the state of love because I persist in holding your heart in my mouth. The body, the soul, and the spirit, they have become one with your heart in my mouth.
The very spirit and momentum of classic surrealism. Well, you know what? We've got a minute more for you, Beatriz. So would you do a request for me and read the relatively short poem Theodora Incipient on page 35?
Okay. The Andes, reminder of the littleness of childhood, fragility because spring runoff is eternal and downward pulled by cheerful gravity doing what gravity does, and with plate tectonics interrupting the more gentle movements of the earth. All being upended with irregular frequency, the shards of glass lined the floor of the loved childhood home. The first kingdom was a place long and narrow, with obstructions of view defining geography on the road to Theodora. Paradise was always the goal, John of Ephesus described it. All that matters is of Ephesus born, Ephesus of the mind, because the goddess is revered there despite the excessive number of breasts crowding her chest. Ephesus is Chile, an open and shut case, a country with its St. James Town at center, Serene Town at north, Conception Town middling south, and Sandpoint Town closest to antipodal Antarctic, with the Southern Cross replicating the morning star, illuminating all things that were one at origin. Light.
Thanks. Fantastic. Now, let's go to Joe, who takes us to, from Beatriz's vision, in a way, the antipodes. But on the other hand, the antipodes are a pole, and the pole is a fundamental part of the other pole, of the totality of the axis. All I have learned is where I have been. Joe Fiorito's second collection creates uncompromising mini narratives about addiction, failed rehabs, incarceration, homelessness, and a lot more, I should say, along with his 2018 book, City Poems. This work establishes him as the preeminent chronicler of people in extremis. Down and Out in Paris and London, titled a great book by George Orwell, something that Joe has a little bit of kinship with. Poems of searing precision convey a visual knowledge of urban reality today. All I have learned is where I have been is a moving exploration of brokenness by an indispensable writer. The author of 8 books, Fiorito won the National Newspaper Award for Columns in '95, the Bressani Prize for Short Fiction in 2000, and the 2003 City of Toronto Book Award for his novel, The Song Beneath the Ice. He's been a city columnist for the Montreal Gazette, the National Post, the Globe and Mail, and the Toronto Star. He retired from the Star in 2017, and he's at work on his 3rd volume of poems, which I am very happy to know about. Okay, Joe, over to you.
Thanks very much, and thanks all. That's a hard act to follow. I should just say to begin with that launching a book seems to me like dropping an ice cube into a glass of whiskey. You hope for a little splash, you hope for a little warmth. Launching a book during a pandemic is like holding a glass, imagining ice, imagining whiskey, imagining splash. This will do for my glow. As you said, it's a second book, and it's a kind of a compilation of a bunch of different things. Some of these poems are 50 years old. From when I began writing as a kid, I retrieved them, I've made them new. Others are based on things that I heard and saw during 25 years of pounding the beat as a city columnist in the papers, and they are as new as I can make them. I hope they're kind of always going to be new. I should note that even when I was writing for the papers, I held to the dictum of Dr. Williams, which is no ideas but in things. A couple of principles inform this work. The sound of the human voice is the best song because it was the first song. Every writer needs an open wound. A thing can be itself, or it can be something else. And that things change when you look at them long enough. They become something in addition to your looking, and they become something you remember. And I think that memory is a big spark for work. If I remember something, I know it's imprinted in me. I can work with that. Here are some things, and this won't take long because I write short. I begin with a couple of older poems from 1966, from Thunder Bay, specifically from Egan Street, in a little motel late at night. And if my wife is listening to this, she might cover her ears. Lake Superior Lament, the first. The cock on the rooftop stiffens and spins. The clouds are pursed like lips. At the foot of the hill is the lake, licking the bellies of ships. The waves are as blue as the mountains. The sky is as blue as the lake. And I am as blue as the cold waves are for your sake. Lake Superior Lament number 2. I knelt and held her narrow hips, night shift, Durham wheat, newsprint, red ore spilled into ships. I kissed her narrow foot, her swollen lips. Pulp logs tumble and barking drums in the mill beside the lake. She shivered in the motel light as if she knew a heart, not hers but mine, would break. I have a kind of theory about the country, if that's not too big a thing to say. The story of the big city is that it's made up of people from small towns. There's a kind of a national anger in the small towns at the big city because we left. And the subtext there is, this place not big enough for you? You too good for us? But they miss us, the ones who love us, and we miss them. And at first we go back for weddings, and then we go back for funerals, and then we don't go back at all, and that's a national sadness. This is what it was like going back to Fort William for the funeral of my Uncle Frank. Row 17, seat A. The field below is green, is filled with random stones. Each spring the red dirt unearths new ones. A row of markers over a row of bone. The logic of the graveyard is apparent from the air. From the clouds, a ceremony of descent. I look down, falling. I cannot take my eyes from there. This next poem, if I can find it. That's what I hate about readings, is marking the pages if you're reading not exactly in order. This is a poem I stumbled on when I was a kid working in the bush doing survey work. It's called Still Life. The dog's skull in the woods. Ants had eaten their fill of dog. The skull was hot. The ants grown fat on dog secrets. The skull was white. The woods perfumed with heat. I held the dog's skull in my hand. Red ants and white teeth fell, too loose to bite. I took that skull home in my lunch pail, and I still have it, and it's over there on my wall, and you could see it if I turn my camera around. There is in Northern Ontario a kind of a scratch in the landscape that's about 300 meters deep, or 300 feet deep rather, called Wilmette Canyon, and it's popular for tourists, and it's popular for lovers, and it's popular for other things, as you will discover. A flash of alder, red as a trout scale on stone, a scree of Arctic flowers, white as splintered bone. This is where he stepped into the air. Quick, fish out of water. He fell there. This is a poem about my cousin. He worked as a glazier. He was strong as an ox. He was a little right wing. He was as sweet as they come. He was one of the hard workers. And as you know, in Northern Ontario and elsewhere in the country, work kills sometimes. Epitaph. Big square Lou cutting squares of glass. The dust got you. It bruised your wrist. Your pink tattoo. Needle pricks, not ink, said Lou. Last snap, a cup of tea, a knitted cap, a pretty blanket, hands in lap. It hurt to look. He knew. A glazier gazing out the window. My last view of Lou. This is a poem I wrote for Goran Simic, a poet who lived through the siege of Sarajevo. I met him here in Toronto. Of the siege, he once wrote that he wanted to write poems like newspaper reports. When I was a newspaper columnist, I tried to write newspaper reports like poems. Here's the poem, here's the news. Balkan economics. The last time I saw sugar, it was $100 a kilo during the war, he said, stirring 3 spoons into his double shot Americano. You know, I have no idea what this poem means, but it arises from a meeting of tenants at a rough and nasty little apartment building. The poem is called The Meeting at West Lodge. The lucky thumb boy is a lucky thumb boy. Even if he breaks his thumb, he's still a lucky boy. He don't like human beings. His rats ate a pair of shoes on me. She claps her hands and we clap hands. Ask why? We say the lucky thumb boy knows why. You know what that means? You can call me later and tell me. This is the poem from which the title of the book arises. It's called Little Sister Asleep. And it's about someone I knew. She on a kitchen chair, legs tucked up, short hair, grabbed me there. She died later, sniffing gasoline. All I have learned is where I have been. Penultimate poem. No one tells you this when you're young. And I'll just leave it at that. The poet at 70. I walk, I leak, I limp, I drop my paper, fending off cars and dogs and skaters. My hair hides, viva che, viva me, under a beret. I bend but do not break, not today. And because we are dealing with the subject of love, this is, I'll dedicate this to Susan. It's called Vacation Maine. She took off her shirt and ate fried chicken on the motel bed's edge. I kicked away her shoes as we watched Nightline in the USA. In Rome, you get the blues, not the news from home. We kept cool with a bucket of ice. America is a foreign country. Next morning on the way to Bowdoin, I said Baudouin. We watched lobstermen tend roses at the sea's edge. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Joe. Now, I'm going to allow just 1 second of silence. So you got to have your own ending, but I want to ask you, since we got a little bit of time to add, to read another poem or two, if you don't mind. But if you do mind, just tell me. One I was thinking of was Open Season, and just let me put a note in there. It comes close after the Dog Skull poem that you read us. It's about dogs, and to me, it's a living link with Canadian poetic history, at least as lived by me, because I can remember one drunken night when John Newlove wouldn't leave my house, and he sat at the table and about 4 or 5 a.m. told endless stories of horrors on the prairies where he grew up, trying to shock me. Now, I come from Niles, Ohio. I was not very shocked. But in any case, one of the stories he was very impressed with was how the men would go out and shoot, lots of stray dogs because they were dangerous. And that's sort of the subject of your poem. So I was sort of taken aback when I saw it, as Newlove told me years ago. Would you read that poem?
Have you got the page handy?
Yes, I do. It's 42.
42. This is from the Arctic, and this is a problem in the Arctic. And I lived in Iqaluit and worked in Iqaluit for 5 years, called Open Season. We shoot the stray dogs in the morning when the children are asleep. The pups come jumping towards us, wagging their tails when we call. We throw their bodies on the truck bed. They stiffen from the cold before we reach the dump. Now and then the chained dogs howl.
Now and then the chained dogs howl. That's great. Okay. Well, I'm not going to pester you with the other poem. We've had a
I dare you to.
yeah, that's right. You'll get me next time when we meet. That's right. So we've had a great meeting, and I don't know what Sienna, the moderator, wants us to do in terms of talking. I know we're supposed to talk together, and I've got a lot of things to say. I don't know about you guys. But I don't know if there's people online that Sienna thinks should be admitted to the conversation or anything like that. So she just says, by all means, enjoy your time together. There are no questions from out in television land as of yet, but we might get some, maybe even by this chat. I'm looking at the printed chat on the right side of the screen when I'm saying all this, right? Okay, guys. So I don't know if somebody wants to barge in, or you want.
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
That's awfully naked stuff. Talk about how you approach the writing with the idea of reading it.
You know who? Natasha?
B.
Yeah.
You. Yeah.
I don't. How I approach the right. Well.
Do you mean reading it, Joe? Us reading it? Because we're reading her naked, or do you mean her presenting it as
her presenting it?
Yeah, go ahead, Beach.
I don't think about it when I'm writing it. I don't think about reading it out loud to people. Although I imagine somebody reading it, hopefully, you know, people
Yeah.
who absolutely love me. But um, I don't know. I think I just open up. I become open, just like when I'm writing. I feel it, and sometimes I feel the poetry really living in me as I read it. Like today was good for me. I felt really comfortable reading it.
Well, it's beautiful and courageous.
But I haven't really read these poems,
Yeah.
like because of COVID. You know,
Yeah.
the book was launched in April, like in the middle of
The middle of it. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me, Joe's question and your poem reminds me of a nice, insightful yet somewhat bratty comment that Frank O'Hara once made. He says, you know, your poetry, your style is like you're choosing your pants. You want them not so tight that they're uncomfortable, but tight enough that everyone wants to go to bed with you. So that was his idea.
Who's his tailor?
Exactly. Or he had to try on an awful lot of pants at Macy's. That's right. So let's go. Let me ask Natasha. You know, man, I love this book, Natasha. You know, I got to know you through your rep and through some of your other work. So when I had a choice of people I could bring on, oh, you know, man, there's a plethora of riches, obviously. But I really wanted to get to know you, and I only knew a few poems from, you know, that I could find online and stuff. So, and some of your other work in other fields. And this book was just something to rejoice over when I got it. It's such a beautiful book. And, you know, I just, many things in it really interested me. All the different forms you use. And yet within them, you know, I added to your publisher's description the words a sensitive lyricism. It seems to me almost every poem is a lyric poem, despite the odd shapes you put them into and the fact you're presenting them as a GPS readout or a recipe or some damn thing, right? You know, you seem to have a great talent to get a very generous, plangent, emotional lyricism into everything. Is this one of your goals or one of your feelings or part of your nature, you know?
Yeah, it absolutely is part of my nature and part of my feelings. I think even when I'm working on, you know, more journalistic pieces, personal essays, short fiction, where it is possible, based on the form, I do like to kind of have more images, and I like to be able to use that as a way to break a moment open,
Sure.
and to be able to explore the moment a little bit more.
Yeah, that's really great. I like the way you got gently but very firmly and deeply at some big themes. Like I think of my grandfather studying Hamlet in school. What did he get out of that? So it's a way of looking at, okay, you absorb the imperial language and all its splendors, but on the other hand, doesn't it kind of erase or prevent you from getting to your own language? What is that? You don't even know. And it suggests you should. Maybe that's a good from it. But on the other hand, it doesn't exactly help you. Well, this is like the substance of the life's work of a great poet like Derek Walcott, for instance, as you doubtless know as well as I do. And he's from Trinidad, Tobago, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. So I was very impressed with that. I love the sugar being part of the soma, the physique of the people and the psyche and so on. I love that you're from Meadowvale. Don't you love names like Meadowvale? You go out to Meadowvale and there's no meadow and there's no veil. In fact, it couldn't be farther from a meadow and a veil, right? But you find a way to praise it and make it beautiful anyhow, right? You know, yeah. So yeah, maybe I'm not starting a conversation very well. I just wanted to really praise this. So let me just raise one issue that I think goes with all of you. What is time but glances? You said in one of the latter poems that you read. And you talked about all the glances in which people are together, just sharing a moment as they're dragged past one another by routine and duty. And the perception there that, sort of time is conversation, is communication. That seemed to me a real insight, a real addition. We sometimes say, "Oh, we got to get away from clock time and do our own personal time." Well, I think we rarely say time is conversation, togetherness, community, communion. But I think all poetry seems to exemplify that, and I could draw that theme into Joe's work and Beatriz's work equally well.
One thing I was thinking about today is how different time has become for me during this sort of seclusion, really, this period of not being in community except through mediated means, right?
Yeah.
And there's a kind of distortion of time, and it just brings home how important it is to be in a community of people, what Joe brings in his poetry is so alive, and it's sort of outside of time too. I mean, you're talking about a time when you were in the Arctic, or a time now, how it is now. I feel very much the passing of time at an accelerated rate, and yet, being in what you say, Al, is that being in poetry allows you to be in the Arctic killing those poor dogs. Right now, like while we are in front of these computers or devices and detached from time in a way.
There's a space in which it's all present tense, and it remains present tense. And for me, it's a present tense that's kind of narrated by snapshots. In my work is really quite visual, I think, and all of those images in each of the pieces is just it's burned into my. This is going to be what I see. This is my newsreel as I die. All these little images.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The philosophers will argue over, is there a privileged now or is there not a privileged now? In other words, we're right now in now. However, yesterday you were in a now which you were enjoying or suffering, and 10 years ago you were in a now. Like Joe, some of his poems from today go back to, he said, 40, 50 years ago. But they're just as present, just as visual as the poems that he might have written seeing somebody just a few months ago or just before his book was published, and so on. Is your now of now more now than your now of yesterday was? Well, it is in a way, but maybe in another way it isn't.
Oh, they're the same to me.
Yeah, and poetry gets at that, doesn't it? It brings those nows that are threatened with being looked at as faded or not present. It brings them here. It helps tell us how they are here profoundly, right? You see, I thought I'd go back to both Natasha and Beatriz on what Joe says, right? Beatriz's stuff is so much about inheritance in terms of people, but in terms of culture too. Inheritance deep back into the endless past, right? And Natasha, the book is about going and seeking realities of, getting to know the old people better, and then going with the old people to the old country and getting to know it better, and wondering, okay, I'm brought up mainly in Canada. What was that? It's me, but it's somehow deep in me. How with my conscious mind do I access it, right? And so the poetry is all very much about that, I think, and that's the depth of the human being, sort of, I just think these things are, come out in these poems beautifully, I love to hear Goran Simic. I knew Goran Simic too. Oh, I still know him. I hear from him once in a while. He's down in Florida now, I believe. But he's written some great poems, and they're long lined, and they're much more lengthy and developed, sort of, as it were, narratively developed than Joe's poems. They have really an equal kind of poetry journalism marriage, poetry realistic reportage marriage like Joe's, even though the form is quite different. Here comes Sienna back. You have something to tell us about that we've reached the end of our time?
I wish we could have another hour. To be honest, I've been sitting here on the back end just transfixed by everyone's work. Thank you so much for sharing, a piece of your hearts and your minds with us. This has been truly something. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. You guys are all geniuses, but I'm the supreme genius for having chosen you. Man, well, I don't know what kind of inspiration I was having when that
Curatorial supreme.
Exactly. So thanks a million.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sienna, and everybody at work.
Get to know you a bit, Natasha. Joe.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
So you're ending our session now for us, Sienna? Okay.
Sure am. All right, everybody. So in case you want to hear more of these marvelous poets, you can find their works Bittersweet, All I Have Learned Is Where I Have Been, As Far As You Know, and Beloved Revolutionary Sweetheart at the Word on the Street digital marketplace at www.wordonthestreet.shop. We'll be back in 15 minutes for our next event, where Ryan B. Patrick speaks with authors Faye Guenther and Subankam Thamavongsa, presented by Diaspora Dialogues. See you then.